Confess, confess. It felt good beating us, starving us, frightening us. You didn't do it because you cared about ratings. You did it because it felt good. The HBO gods and the Heisenverse are cruel, but we're all in this together. Day 11 Podcast took some advice from Ben Phelps and put together a podcast about Westworld podcasts. Now they're doing the same with Star Trek Discovery, Better Call Saul, and Game of Thrones. For all of their weekly coverage of Westworld, Better Call Saul, 13 Reasons Why, House of Cards, Star Trek Discovery, and Game of Thrones, search Day 11 Game of Thrones or visit Day 11 Podcast. This is an Unspoiled Network podcast. This is Unspoiled, covering Doctor Who, Season 3, Episode 3, The Shakespeare Code. In this episode, "Hey, Nonny Nonny" is definitely going to be a thing that I say when I see a hot guy from now on. Thank you for giving me that gift, show. Super awkward for everybody involved. Well, welcome to the show, everybody. I am Natasha.
And I am Jaime.
Oh, guys, this was another good one. I like this episode a lot. I'm here for witches, and especially like these witches that are also aliens. I'm about it.
And they're fantastic names.
Doomfinger. I think that they might have stolen that.
I'm not a James Bond expert, but I'm pretty sure that was Goldfinger.
I'm pretty sure it was Doomfinger.
What's the one in Austin Powers?
Goldmember?
Goldmember. That was not one of the good ones, but yes.
It was real bad. I love gold.
Bloodtide is the other one.
Bloodtide isn't terrible. That's pretty good. Doomfinger is just like that. Doomfinger feels like the kind of name that you get on one of those like Facebook quizzes where they're like, pick your birthday, pick the day that you were, right? Born, and then your mom's middle name or whatever. And it's just all of a sudden everybody's like coming up with these awesome names, and then you have one really sad person off to the side who's like, I'm just Fearfoot. Fearfoot. That's nothing. Is that anything? That's nothing. Yeah.
Well, what's really funny is there's Doomfinger, Bloodtide, and Lilith.
Yeah, I had that question. Like, and she does transform at one point into the same like look that they all have.
Yeah.
But they don't do that again before the end of the episode. Like that, it's just that one time to let us know that she's of the same. She's one of the same species, but like after that, it's sort of implied, I think, that they can't look human at all, and she can.
Is it implied?
I feel like that's what they're like, because they do we ever see them like leave the house looking like people? Even when they're up in the rafters of the theater, they look like themselves.
Yeah, no, they always look like these crazy witches, and she always looks very beautiful.
Why?
I don't know.
Is she the Lilith? Is that supposed to be the thing? Is she the Lilith that walked the earth? That was like, you know what, Adam? I've had about enough of your fucking whiny bullshit. I'm out.
In Supernatural, Lilith is like the queen of hell.
Yeah.
She's like a major demon. Like one step down below Satan. There's Satan or Lucifer, and then there's Lilith.
There's a lot of mythology surrounding her and suggesting that could she's supposed to represent everything that's wrong with like wanton women, yada yada yada. So that's kind of what I expected, like, because she didn't transform the way that they did as consistently as they did. And because her name was so different, I was like, oh, maybe she's supposed to be like a higher level being than they are.
Maybe.
But
maybe she has more power than they do.
Maybe. She calls them mothers, though, and you would think that mothers... She doesn't call them sisters. Which one would think, if they were equals, that's what you would say, right?
Maybe they're part of some kind of order.
Okay. Yeah, all right. Well, I have all kinds of questions, and I would appreciate you answering them personally right now on the show. Thank you.
You know what happens when I try to come up with an answer that isn't already answered for us. I run out of steam eventually.
Yeah, but it's so fun to hear it happen. I love it. All right, so yeah, this episode starts off with a faraway shot of 15th century, 16th century?
16th century.
When you say 16th century, you're talking about the 1500s, right?
Yes.
Which I always just hated. I don't like that. That's how we have things set up, but okay. And it's 16th century London, and there's a woman leaning out a window as some dude sings her a really silly song.
It's very Romeo and Juliet.
Yes.
Except that Romeo did not sing.
And she's like, basically, why do we have to wait to fuck, baby? And he says, yes, tonight's the night. And goes running upstairs and sees her place and is like, you're way too pretty to live here. And I was like, have you not seen that Friends episode with Rebecca Romaine Stamos, sir? Because that's how this goes. My
favorite line in that episode is when Joey's like, now go sleep with that beautiful pig.
My favorite is when Ross is like saying that she doesn't want to go back to his place because she says it smells weird. And somebody says, what does it smell like? And he goes, I don't know, soap. And he's like so angry when he says it. So yeah, he comes in and she's like, hey moms, I got us dinner. And then they just all descend upon him. And I can't help but wonder how often they do this, because I feel like people would start to notice that folks were disappearing. But
especially if the people who are disappearing are always somehow connected to this woman.
Yeah, because she says, why wait on stale custom? Which implies to me that they're engaged. Does that sound wrong to you? He's got a lute. Look at this loser.
Or that they're trying to get to that point, but yeah, like, why wait? Because society tells us to.
Okay.
I don't know. And there's never a word about him again.
No, nothing.
He's just gone.
He was just dinner. He was just takeout.
And actually, there's nothing said in the entire episode about, like, this has been happening or people are disappearing. That's just not a concern. Maybe in 1599, people just sort of fucking died.
I'm wondering if there was enough of his body left that looked like he had just been, like, ravaged by some terrible disease. Or if he just completely disappears, or how that works. I want to know the logistics. Shocking. I know. But yeah, it is kind of funny, actually, now that I think about it, how this episode starts, considering that none of this ever means anything ever again. But
yeah,
it's fine. I'm here for the creepy dude who's very judgmental about her living quarters getting eaten. That's fine. Go ahead. You know what, girl? Get it.
Sure.
So we have the doctor arriving with Martha, and he doesn't tell her exactly where they are, and then she steps out and she's like, no way, I can't believe this, we really did travel in time. And then she stops and is like, hey, do you think it's a good idea for me to be walking around here when I'm black and this is just, and I'm like, honestly, even aside from the fact that you're black, the way that you're dressed, I feel like you would get arrested. Like the magistrate or something would be on you for indecency.
Luckily, she puts on a jacket because she's just wearing a tank top.
Mm-hmm. But she's got pants on.
Yeah.
Pants, Jaime. Pants!
Which Shakespeare digs. Her clothes are very fitted.
Oh my goodness. Shakespeare's a dog.
But I do appreciate that the show, having a black woman being the companion, allows her to be like, so, this is cool, but at this time in history, me being a human and knowing this and you being a Time Lord and maybe not paying that much attention, black people were slaves. I don't want to be a slave.
She asks if she's going to get carted away to be a slave, and he literally says, why would they do that? And I'm like, Doctor.
Yeah.
Look, you're supposed to know a lot. And this is something that any human would know. How is it that you are reacting that way right now?
Also, considering that not all that long ago, you and Rose were on this rock outside of a black hole where some human beings had enslaved an entire race of aliens.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like the concept of slaves is a mystery to you.
No. The people that he got all mad at What's-Her-Face for blowing up had come to enslave the human race.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. So his reaction I found really puzzling. It's like the show sometimes can't decide whether they want him to be, like, adorably naive because he doesn't understand how evil people can be to each other, and be all-knowing. They just can't figure out exactly the balance. And,
yeah. He tells her to walk around like she owns the place. Well,
yeah.
Also, that would get a black person arrested in 1599.
Yeah, he
you don't
says,
own anything.
Walk around like you own the place. It's always worked for me. To which I wanted her so much to be like, oh, has it? Oh, you don't say. Interesting.
Imagine how that works for you, a white man. Interesting. Yeah. One step forward, two steps back.
Yeah, so just that whole, like, I like the fact that the show brought it up, but the way that they had him cope with the question was very unsatisfying and weirdly, like, it did not actually answer her question at all, you know? And they really, considering that they're walking through an area that's got a fair number of people in it, they would definitely be stopped because, like you said, she's just wearing a tank top initially. She puts a jacket on, like, later. But
she puts it on before she leaves the TARDIS, or as she's leaving the TARDIS.
I'm looking at her right now. She's walking around holding it.
Oh, really? I thought she was putting it on as she got out of the TARDIS.
Nope.
Huh.
She might have grabbed it as she was leaving, but they're walking around downtown as he's, like, talking her through how, you know, nothing really has changed all that much. And she finally puts it on once he, like, finishes leading her through the little water cooler moment, global warming, recycling, yada, yada, yada. Then he puts it on.
Okay.
So the Globe Theater has just opened, and he invites her to come and see Shakespeare. This is because he's told her that he's only taking her on one trip, and he decided to do something like this that's like a big deal, very special for her one trip. Which is a good idea. Mm-hmm. And then when they go inside and she yells author, and Shakespeare actually comes out, turns out Shakespeare's a pretty attractive man. Much more attractive than he looked in any of his paintings, she points out.
Mm-hmm.
Because, yeah, that man in those paintings is not... That's no good. We don't want that. So this dude is he's foxy. That's the word I want to use, because he seems very sort of wily as well. Mm-hmm. He's kind of a weird choice acting-wise, because he really seems like much more of a gangster to me.
Huh.
Like, there's something about him that I picture him pulling a heist. You know what I mean? He's like an Ocean's 11 character.
He's got a rakish quality.
Rakish. There's a good word. Wily, rakish, yeah.
What a rapscallion? Is that
rapscallion. I like that one. Yep. But yeah, so he's, you know who he would be good for, actually? He would be a good John Marcone in Dresden Files.
Oh, see, I haven't read those yet.
Everybody who's reading Dresden Files, back me up on this. So he's out there waving to the crowd and getting them all worked up and talking about how there's going to be a part 2 to this play that comes out, but not to rush him because it's a process, yada, yada, yada. And then we see that bitch up in the rafters, and she is using her doll, her voodoo doll, and she makes him say, "It's coming out tomorrow." And the doctor can tell something weird just happened, but obviously he has not clued in yet to exactly what the hell is going on.
Yeah, he also knows that the play that Shakespeare is talking about is a play that has been rumored to have existed at some point, but there's no evidence of it.
Right. And the doctor gets so excited when he comes out and is like, always he chooses the best words. New, beautiful, brilliant words. And then what Shakespeare actually says is, "Oh, shut your big fat mouths." Which feels right. That feels right to me.
Martha's like, "Don't meet your heroes."
So, yeah. This new play is promised, and she really wants to see it, so they decide that they are going to stay for an extra day, even though it was supposed to be a quick trip. And then we go to them walking in to meet him, and Shakespeare being very irritated that fans are interrupting his little get-together with his friends.
I like I won't give you an autograph, you're not going to get a portrait done with me.
Mm-hmm. No
photos.
Sketches. And and don't ask me where I get my ideas from. That's my favorite. Like, I was listening to an episode recently of Complete Guide to Everything, and one of them is an author, and his friend was doing like a mock interview with him, and that was the first thing he asked. It was, "So, Tom, where do you get your ideas from?" And he like barely gets to say the question, and his friend is like, "You motherfucker." But yeah, they walk in, and here comes the "Hey, Nonny Nonny, sit down here right next to me."
I need to know if the "Hey, Nonny Nonny" is a reference to something in a Shakespeare play.
I'm pretty sure there's a song that is in one of his plays. Hold on. "Hey, Nonny Nonny." From Much Ado About Nothing.
Ah.
Yes.
I was really excited to take a Shakespeare class when I was in college. And I had to drop it because of conflicts with a class I needed. And I never finished college, so I never actually got to take a Shakespeare class. But I really wanted to because I do love his plays. I just haven't read a lot of them. I've seen a lot of different versions of things that he wrote, though. Like Much Ado About Nothing, here. Which I saw a movie. I have
always really disliked Shakespeare.
Really?
Yeah.
I love Shakespeare.
I have always, Shakespeare has always, and to a degree this is fine, but he's always, struck me as somebody who, he wrote, people in, the most insulting way possible, and it felt almost purposeful to me, that there was, a meanness about him.
What's wrong with that?
There's nothing wrong with it. It's that nobody else seemed to ever see what I meant and agree with me. And I'm sure now as an adult, I would run across more people that got that. But when I was in school, I was always he's a huge douchebag, guys. What do you and he's just treated as this the way the doctor treats him, basically, as pure genius. Shakespeare is a messy bitch. Look at the guy.
There's rumors that he basically stole other people's writing.
I would not be one whit surprised. Like, that's totally on par for how many geniuses became geniuses. They didn't do anything worth being geniusy.
I think
and
one
took
of them
shit from somebody else.
I think the most famous one, I think his name is Christopher Marlowe. There's a rumor that he wrote a lot of the things that Shakespeare got credit for.
Yeah, I have heard that as well. I just I don't know. It's not even that the stuff that Shakespeare wrote was bad or anything. It was just always so, it's so soapy and trashy, really. And it's just because of the type of language he used to tell the stories. Everybody's always acted like they were much more elevated than they really, I think, ever deserved to be.
I just think it's because there was nobody else that compared at the time. He was really prolific, especially if he was stealing other people's stuff. I don't know. I mean, I get what you're saying, and I'm not a Shakespeare scholar. I have not read all of his plays. I haven't read most of his plays. I find them much more enjoyable to see them performed because it helps me understand the language better. But I don't know. I just enjoy the stories he tells. I kind of like that they're a little mean-spirited.
Yeah, I don't it's not even it's really just the way that he's treated by us now.
Yeah.
That gets under my skin more than his work. So,
well, I kind of feel that way about Dickens. I guess he told a good story, but I can't stand to read it.
Some of his writing is so painful.
Yeah.
I love me a Christmas Carol for sure, but damn, some of his others, I'm trying to remember what the other one, I read one within the past 10 years that has stuck with me just because of how totally heavy-handed it was, because he was so socially conscious, but he didn't know how to do that gracefully. Oof, Lord, it is just, it reeks sometimes. You're just man, you need to lay off, okay?
Yeah.
You get it. So yeah, I get where you're coming from on that. There's honestly, there's just a lot of classic literature out there that I'm I don't get it. I don't.
Oh yeah, I'm completely in that boat.
Yeah. So, but anyway, hey Nonny Nonny. Such unusual
it is funny.
Clothes, so fitted. And she says, "Verily, forsooth, egads." Because she's the most awkward human being I've ever seen.
The doctor's don't do that.
Don't do that.
Verily is a phrase I would really love to bring back into the common vernacular. Oh, verily.
I could see that.
It's real fun.
I remember the first time somebody in a movie, a modern movie, said, "Indeed," in response to an insult. And I was just oh my God, that was genius. Using language like that when somebody's just being really shitty to you is so yeah. If somebody insulted you and you responded with "verily," what would they even do? How do you come back from that? That just sinks the ship. That's it. Yeah, no, I approve.
Okay. I'll do my best.
And then he shows Shakespeare his psychic paper, and Shakespeare sees that it's blank. And the doctor's "Yep, see? I knew it. A genius." Which is the weirdest turn that this show has ever taken. R.E. that psychic paper. Has that been established, that seeing through that just means you're really smart?
No, the only other time I think that people they were just seeing it as blank was when they were at Torchwood and they knew about the psychic paper, so they knew to be aware of it. So when he flashed it, it didn't show them anything because they knew what he was going to be doing.
I feel like psychic paper should be able to account for that.
You'd think.
You know, it's psychic. So it anticipates that you are prepared to see it and compensates, I would think. Well, nevertheless.
Guess not.
And then he says, "Who is your delicious blackamoor lady?" And she says, "What's that now?" And he says, "Whoops. Isn't that a word we use nowadays? An Ethiop girl, a swarth, a queen of Afric." Whew. All right, sir. Pull over. Everybody's getting out. An Ethiop girl, a swarth, a queen of Afric. Good Lord. You know what? Queen of Afric works. Let's go with that. Sure.
And the blackamoor part, because I know the Moors were, I think they were from Africa and they invaded Spain.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I know in Othello is a Moor. Correct? Yeah.
Correct.
So, I don't know what part of Africa that's from, and if he's like calling her a blackamoor lady is trying to be like his version of politically correct.
I mean, that's basically, yeah, it's political correctness gone mad is what the doctor says.
Yeah.
Oh, God. She's from a far-off land, Fredonia. Oh, nice one, Doc.
Where a woman can be a doctor? Where a woman can be whatever she likes.
Where a woman can do what the fuck she feels like, buddy.
Yep.
Oh, and you know what I did want to mention, too? Is that the woman who runs this inn that they're staying in,
mm-hmm.
she's really, like, into Shakespeare.
Yep.
And I really loved that, like, sort of unnecessary, like, bit of plot that she, like, walks in when the witch is in there and is just like, well, I guess I'm not the only one. Like, there's something about the fact that doesn't, like, matter at all, but that she's definitely fucking this dude, and he is definitely fucking everybody else, and she kind of knows it, but it's not until she's, like, faced with it, and the girl is, like, so much younger as well, that she really just seems kind of like, oh, fuck this guy. And I was a little bit bummed that she dies. She deserved better than that. She put up with a lot of shit. Look at this guy.
Well, and he's kind enough to say, like, she survived a couple of plagues, refused to leave. Mm-hmm. She's been through some shit. It seems like he really liked her, like, as a person. He liked and respected her. Her name's Dolly Bailey, I think?
Dolly. There's a good old-fashioned name. I like that. Although, I guess that was that sheep they cloned. Nevertheless. So here comes this one dude who's like, you never gave me your fucking script.
Yeah, is this a thing?
I have no idea.
Master of Revels? Master of the Revels? Like, were things so, I guess, censored at the time? That doesn't seem like it would be that surprising. That they would have to turn in their play scripts to make sure that nothing was going to offend or, I don't know. What other reason would you have?
Master of Revels, deputy to the Lord Chamberlain, headed the Revels office, the department of the royal household responsible for the coordination of theatrical entertainment at court.
At court? But he wouldn't be at court. He would be at this theater, which is not court.
Anyone involved in the production of plays in Elizabethan England, from the playwright to the theater owners, knew that the Master of Revels was the man to impress and fear, for he auditioned acting troupes, selected the plays they would perform, and controlled the scenery and costumes to be used in each production.
Huh. Was that just in case Elizabeth decided to go and see a play?
Probably. Let's see. To perform at court was the ultimate goal of every Elizabethan theater company, and even if certain renegade companies did not desire to gain a royal audience, they had little choice but to pretend to shape their every action to this end. Practicing to perform at court for the monarch's entertainment was the only officially accepted excuse for playing companies that playing companies could give for playing regularly in London. Without the London audiences, it was unlikely that a troupe would survive. When the Master of Revels organized an upcoming season of performances, he would summon the acting troupe so that they could audition before him and his 3 subordinate officers. The Master would then choose which companies would perform and which plays they were allowed to produce. If the Master saw fit, he would delete lines or passages and even request that entire scenes be inserted into the original material.
Hate it.
Yeah. Yeah, that seems like too much power for one man.
Also, limiting people's jobs. They're like restricting art is just hate that. So, God, I wonder if this is something that Elizabeth came up with.
The Master's power extended beyond control of court entertainment to include censoring publicly performed plays and issuing licenses to provincial acting troupes. This led to a gradual corruption of the office, and by 1603 it was common for the Master of Revels to earn 10 times his yearly salary through bribes.
That sounds
the Revels
about right.
office reached the height of its authority under the direction of Sir Henry Herbert, the brother of acclaimed poet George Herbert. However, following the Civil War in 1642, the Puritan government closed all the theaters and the office of the Revels became fruitless. After restoration of the monarchy, Herbert, still Master of Revels, tried to resurrect the Revels office to its former glory, but his attempts were unsuccessful. The Revels office was formally eliminated in 1737.
It seems like it took a really long time to be completely eradicated.
It's pretty crazy how long shit took before technology, and by technology I mean very basic stuff, printing press and whatnot. But then even once they I was actually, the fact that Bedlam comes up in this episode, while I was watching, I looked up some information on Bedlam because I hadn't realized how old it was.
Yeah.
And it turns out that during this era, it wasn't really even used primarily as a place for keeping the insane. It was treated a lot more like a hotel for the needy, like a shelter almost. And eventually it did become more associated with the insane because they realized that by treating it as a spectacle, they could make the money they needed to keep it open because they had a really hard time funding it because it was so huge and took so much staff. But it took 200 years for that transition from when it first opened to when it became a place primarily for mentally ill. And that's how it's known to us now. But that took hundreds of years to happen. And nobody even can quite trace when the transition started or why. So a lot of the stuff that's going on in this period, I'm really fascinated by the records that we do have. It's actually pretty impressive, But then there are things that I just take for granted, and then you find out the origins of it are totally unknown or maybe incorrect or whatever.
That makes a lot of sense because a lot of first of all, a lot of people couldn't read and write.
Mm-hmm.
And then the people who could, unless they were really important, their papers weren't saved. So what was saved was basically what came out of the monarchy.
Right.
And the people associated with the monarchy, which is why there are still letters that exist that were written between Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn. But you're not going to get a record on what happened with this hospital because there weren't record keepers at the time.
But the thing is, there's not a record of why that transition happened with the hospital, but they do have a record of who was in charge and the periods that they were in charge and who they were related to and everything. So you can find basically what's amounts to a list of management for Bedlam from 600 years ago.
That's crazy.
It's just bananas to me.
Now, Bedlam, it was in London, obviously.
Right.
Is it still? Like, does that
Yes.
building still exist?
The building exists. I think it's like as a museum now, but hold on, because I was just fascinated. Like, first of all, Bedlam wasn't even, I always thought that was the name. It's not called Bedlam.
No.
That's the nickname that people gave it. It's actually Bedlam Royal Hospital. And I'm trying to find because the Wikipedia on it is super long.
Yeah, that makes sense too.
In 1930, the hospital moved to a suburb of London. The old hospital and its grounds were bought by Lord Rothermere and presented to the London County Council for use as a park. The central part of the building was retained and became home to the Imperial War Museum in 1936.
So it's not even a museum to the hospital.
No.
Still interesting, like stuff like that, because England and London is so old. When I go there, I'm just really excited to be able to see some of this stuff that I've only heard about and that I know existed for 600 years or more. Like, that's just so staggering to me, because you go around the United States, and being from New England, as you would understand, sometimes you're like, you come across a gravestone in someone's yard and it's from the Revolutionary War, and you're like, oh my God, it's from the 1700s. But in England, that's nothing. Mm-hmm. You're going to find shit that's from the 100s.
Yep.
And that's just
we would have stuff
staggering
from the
to me.
100s if we didn't fucking burn it all down.
I suppose that's true, but it depends on what kind of markers were put for things.
Oh, okay. In 1997, the hospital started planning celebrations of its 750th anniversary. The service user's perspective was not to be included, however, and members of the psychiatric survivors movement saw nothing to celebrate in either the original Bedlam or the current practices of mental health professionals towards those in need of care. A campaign called Reclaim Bedlam was launched by Pete Shaughnessy, supported by hundreds of patients and ex-patients, and widely reported in the media. A sit-in was held outside the earlier Bedlam site at the Imperial War Museum. The historian Roy Porter called the Bedlam Hospital, quote, a symbol for man's inhumanity to man, for callousness and cruelty. Yeah, that feels right. That's fair.
It's like when you hear about haunted places here where it's an old hospital or an old mental hospital.
Yep. No, not happening. I've seen people try and be like, oh, let's go and fucking ghost hunt. And no, thank you. Owen, his family, they own a cleaning company. And one of the places that they clean is a community center. And he had trouble with multiple people refusing to work alone in this community center because they kept seeing people walking around and there was nobody there. And they kept hearing things. And he did not give it credence. Owen doesn't believe in ghosts. I do, and I think he's a fool, but it's fine. And he was helping them move a bunch of, there was like piles and piles of stacked tables in one room that was served, like basically was storage, that they would occasionally take all of the tables out for events and stuff, but mostly they just sat against one wall. So this community center made a special request, hey, can you clean out that room and do the floors in there, which they had never done. And he helped somebody with pulling out all of the tables, and they found all of these brackets with eye bolts in the floor.
What are eye bolts?
Eye bolts are like they're basically those bolts that have a ring in one end.
Okay.
So that you can chain things down.
Yeah.
And he found these and they were like, that's weird. And he mentioned it when they reported back on doing the floors. He was like, hey, so there were all these bolts and it was really hard for us to wax around those. So those areas aren't going to look as good. And sorry about that, but there was really only so much we could do. And they were like, oh, yeah, I forgot those were there. This used to be a mental hospital. And they would just, like, change. And all of a sudden, like, Owen came home. And he does, like I said, does not believe in ghosts. But the fact that that's what that facility was originally used for, that there was a whole spot for just chaining people down, and that the folks that he worked with all reported, like, seeing things and hearing people. Mm-hmm. He all of a sudden just got a little bit flipped out by it. He's not, like, he says he doesn't believe, but he still gets scared by things. Mm-hmm. And it just really, like, he's gotten so that working there now, he's just, like, not as cool about it as he used to be, you know? So,
yeah.
Anyway, back to Doctor Who, now that we've learned about Master of Revels and Bedlam. So, yeah, this dude comes in and is just like, you're not performing this play. You didn't even run it by me. This is super disrespectful. Fuck you. And apparently, at one time, Shakespeare could just have taken care of this by greasing this guy's palms. But now there's a witch in play who's like, fuck that. I'm not paying this asshole. And she drowns him in the street.
Yep.
In the weirdest way. And I really liked this a lot. It was super creepy.
Yeah. Can you imagine on, like, a CSI show or something where they're like, well, the medical examiner is saying that he drowned. He was nowhere near water. How is that possible?
I would love it. I would love it. Yeah. Can we get a CSI where the answer is it was witchcraft, please? Pretty please. I would love that. That's a good Halloween special. Just have it be kind of unsolved. And everybody knows that it was witchcraft, but you can't put that in your report. So you just leave it as unsolved.
Or just
Mysterious.
a TV show where, like, things like witches and what have you, I guess that would be supernatural, where that stuff exists, but not everybody knows it.
That's the Dresden Files, my friend.
Okay.
Yeah. That would be Special Investigations Unit, headed by Karen Murphy.
Well, I probably should get on to reading those then.
They're super good. You really should. Just saying.
I have a bunch of them on Kindle because I bought they had some special for the first 7 books or something for like $7.
If anybody is interested in getting into them and they like audiobooks, I cannot recommend the audiobooks highly enough. They have ruined me for audiobooks forever. Basically.
James Marsters, he reads all of them, right? From the very beginning?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
There was one book that he was unavailable to record for, and they got somebody else, and everybody hated him. I feel bad for the guy, to be honest. Like, everybody was just like, who the fuck is this? And years later, after the book came out, like, years later, they were like, hey, James, do you mind, like, re-recording that one that we missed? And we're just going to have you. And so, yeah, now that book is also available with him. But as far as I'm concerned, James Marsters is Harry Dresden. And if he ever, like, people have said that they would rather, if Dresden Files if they try again, because they tried once to make it into a TV show.
Yeah.
People say that they would rather they do an animated show so that James Marsters can voice Dresden in the show as well.
Can he not just play Dresden?
He's a little on the old side now.
Is
Dresden's, like, in the first book, he's, like, 25.
Well, I mean, James Marsters was a little on the old side to be playing Spike, so...
Yeah, but nobody minded that.
Nobody minded.
And also, the whole, like, he's supposed to be, like, 7 feet tall.
Yeah.
So.
It'd be hard to cast. The guy they cast, I remember, I never watched it, but he ended up being on Arrow.
Yeah.
And I don't think people were that upset about his casting.
No, I don't think so.
Positive.
Not that I've heard. Yeah.
He's good. But,
I haven't tried watching the show, and I'm like, part of me wants to just out of curiosity, but I would have to buy it. It's not available to just stream.
Yeah.
And I'm not ready to commit to buying it.
Yeah.
Just can't do it.
It can't have been very good. It got canceled after 1 season.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not always an indication, because Firefly did as well, and even, like, Terminator, the Sarah Connor Chronicles, which was a really fucking excellent show and got canceled after 2 seasons, so that's not an indication, but...
Listen, I feel like anybody who doesn't know how I feel about Firefly, I did a solo show on it, and you can find out if you are a patron. That's all I'm saying.
Huh. I actually don't know how you feel about fireflies. Now I'm scared.
Maybe should be. It's fine.
It's a little overrated.
I've just decided that most Joss Whedon stuff I find to be very overrated.
Yeah.
It's not like his stuff isn't good. It is, but everybody just calm down. How are we only 10 minutes into this episode? Okay.
I don't know, because we've focused too much on things that don't matter.
So,
Lindley
this guy's
dies.
rounds. What?
Lindley is his name. He dies.
Oh, I thought you said Lily.
No.
And then I was like, you mean Lilith? Lindley dies, indeed. So then we have Shakespeare going back into his office to finish writing. And this bitch comes in and makes a marionette finish the writing for him.
Yeah, I did not like that. I don't like marionettes.
Marionettes are creepy as fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There is, I don't want to keep us off track, but there is a place here called the Center for Puppetry Arts here in Atlanta.
That's
And
cool.
I was super nervous about going there because I really thought it was going to be just all marionettes. And I was like, that's terrible. And why would anybody want to make a museum of that? But it turns out it's like a lot of Muppets and stuff. So
yeah.
I definitely want to go because it's the Muppets.
Puppetry, we did like a short class in that when I was going to school for technical theater. And that was one of my favorite classes. Was learning how to make different, because there's so many versions of puppets. And, you know, like there's like those full body ones for the Lion King on Broadway that they did, and shit like that I find like really wild. And yeah, just the word puppet encompasses a lot of different methods and forms. But yeah, so he finishes writing that play. Meanwhile, the doctor decides that it's a great idea to get in bed with Martha and then talk about how much his ex would have helped figure all of this out.
Before we get to that, can we not go past the line of wait till you get to book 7? Oh, I cried.
Oh,
about
that's
Harry
right.
Potter.
Because he's traveled through time.
This was written, this aired long before book 7 came out. So
Right,
I really
would
love
assume.
that.
Yeah, the Harry Potter thing, because when he says it's like magic and witches, she's like, that's a little bit Harry Potter. And he's like, yeah. He seems to not understand that when she says that, she's trying to be a little insulting.
Yeah.
And he's just like, it is.
Yeah, he gets like a big smile when he starts talking about Harry Potter. It's wonderful.
But yeah, I think it's a safe assumption. Like if I were going to write that line saying, ooh, I cried, I feel like that's, yeah.
Yeah.
You're going to know. So yeah, though, Doc.
Yeah.
What are you doing, dude?
Like, based on the first episode with Martha, it doesn't seem like they wrote her in that episode to have like an instant crush on him.
I don't agree.
You don't agree?
No. It seemed to me like she did.
Okay.
Especially when she's like, well, I'm not interested. And then he just
I guess
says
that's
good
true.
and walks away. And she has that fucking look on her face. Like she's really bummed that he didn't press the issue.
Yeah, I guess
he
that's
didn't
true.
keep flirting with her. And she was just like, oh, well, cool.
So he's just like being really obtuse. He's not seeing the way she's looking at him, or like how nervous she is when she's like, there's only one bed. And he just like pops on the bed and is like, there's plenty of room. You know, like he just views her as this friend. Mm-hmm. And he's also, you know, planning on only knowing her for one day. So why would he be trying to pick up those signs? Or he's willfully being obtuse. But yeah,
I kind of feel like that's it more. Mm-hmm. I feel like he's like a girl who is hanging out at a guy's house whom she likes and they're friends, and she knows that he wants there to be more, and she's just hoping that he drops it.
Yeah.
You know, and he just keeps on sort of bringing it up and being like, oh, wouldn't it be funny if we kiss right now? That'd be so weird. And she's just like, yeah, that would be really weird. Do you want me to start the next episode? You know, like that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, and maybe he's not being willfully obtuse. Maybe he's just like, I'm not going to encourage this, so I'm not going to acknowledge it. And then he's just talking about Rose in this like nostalgic way of like she would have figured this out. She would have suggestions. Now, everyone knows how I feel about Rose, but is he right about this?
Yeah, that felt really weird to me.
I think that he is rewriting his own history with Rose because she was curious and brave, willing to just jump into things, oftentimes stupid, and getting herself into trouble.
This is true.
He's like ignoring all of that because she did often come up with like, well, what if it's this? Or what about this? She would notice something that he hadn't noticed and bring it to his attention. And then he would be like, oh, you're so smart. Yes. And like run off in that direction.
Say that again.
Martha's not doing that. She's trying to like understand the situation that she's in, but he's not giving her anything to go off of. Mm-hmm. He's not spitballing the situation with her. She's just like, this is weird. Are there witches? Is there magic? And he's like, it's not magic. But he's not giving her any kind of idea of what it might be.
I'm wondering if we're going to go with him not encouraging her, if maybe he just uses this as an excuse to bring up Rose's name to remind her that he's still hung up on somebody else.
Maybe.
It's like the dude being like, wouldn't it be funny if we kissed right now? And she'd be like, yeah, that would be really funny. One time, me and my boyfriend, and then you just like completely drop into the conversation. That's maybe a thing.
He also calls Martha. He says, like, you know, it's understandable that you don't have any suggestions or ideas about this because you're a novice. You know, You've never done this before, and I'm taking you home tomorrow anyway.
Yeah. What the fuck, guy? And then when she's like, fine, and turns over.
Yeah.
There's no way that he doesn't see that she's upset. But he just leaves it. Like, the scene just cuts. So, yeah, I don't know. On the one hand, like I said before, I love their chemistry together, and I want them to please now kiss. But on the other hand, Martha, you deserve better. So, I feel that about her and Rose.
I was going to say.
Yep. They both were too good for him, pretty much. And I think he knows that.
He probably does.
Yeah. Anyway, okay. So there's that. There's the writing of the play. And then in the morning, they go and see him at the Globe because they want to talk to him about why, like, the way that things have gone down and the fact that one woman turned up to be dead of fright, which is so crazy. She had such enormous spirit. And this is where the doctor says, rage against the dying of the light. And he says, I might use that. And he says, you can't, it's someone else's.
Who says that?
I don't remember. Was it Christopher Marlowe? Let's find out. Rage against the dying of the light. Poems by Dylan Thomas. Do not go gentle into that good night is a poem in the form of a villanelle. What the fuck is a villanelle? All right, looking up what a villanelle is, everybody.
Oh, tell me, because that's the name of a character on Killing Eve.
Ooh, is it?
Yes.
A 19-line poem with 2 rhymes throughout, consisting of 5 tercets and a quatrain, with the first and third lines of the opening tercet recurring alternately at the end of the other tercets, and with both repeated at the close of the concluding quatrain.
Too many rules for poetry.
Oh my God in heaven. That is a lot of words to say nothing that I understand. Do not go gentle into that good night. Old age should burn and rave at close of day. Rage against the dying of the light. Though wise men at their end know dark is right, because their words had forked no lightning, they do not go gentle into that good night. Good men the last wave by, crying how bright their frail deeds might have danced in a green bay, rage, rage against the dying of the light. Wild men who caught and sang the sun in flight, and learned too late they grieved it on its way, do not go gentle into that good night. Grave men near death, who see with blinding sight, blind eyes could blaze like meteors and be gay, rage, rage against the dying of the light. And you, my father, there on the sad height, curse, bless me now with your fierce tears, I pray. Do not go gentle into that good night. Rage, rage against the dying of the light.
I think that's about war.
I guess that's something.
It's pretty nice. I liked it.
Fine.
I'm not a huge fan of poetry, but I like that.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to our scintillating discussions about poetry, at which I say, I guess that's something. And Jaime says, it was pretty nice. I liked it. We are very good at this.
We are obviously English majors. I could barely string a sentence together earlier, so...
What was it that you said? They really hit that hammer with the nail? You got it inside out somehow. It was classic.
Oh, God.
All right. So
Moving
they go
on
to the globe, and they're wandering around trying to figure out exactly what it is about this place.
Did you go to the globe?
I have never been, no.
Okay.
I think that my aunt is also, because she took me to London the first time I ever went. I think I was 13. And she asked me if I would be interested, I think because she had been before, and she went because it's an obligatory,
Yeah.
But I don't think she really cared about Shakespeare either, and I think she was secretly glad when I just showed no interest at all, because I don't think that she really wanted to go back.
Okay.
But yeah, have you been?
No, I've never been to England. Hoping to go this year.
If you go, I'll be interested to see what you think.
I would
Set
definitely go to the Globe, at least to see it, not necessarily see a play there.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is where the doctor points out that there's 14 sides, and isn't that weird? And also that words are magic. So
words are magic.
They are. It's true. That's why that poem affected us so deeply earlier.
Could we both look any dumber?
Oh, God. All right. We've told on ourselves enough. So
No. I can't stop. Okay.
They're going to go and investigate Bedlam. Meanwhile, the bard has left behind his script for these two men to rehearse together.
Yes.
And when they begin, the witches are watching this, and they're like, this isn't supposed to be happening yet. This is too soon. But Lilith is like, oh, don't worry about it. This is just a rehearsal. And we get to see a flicker of this, fucking, what is it the guy calls? A
shade.
A shade. Right. It comes through looking very different than what actually winds up happening when they do it later.
They do show one of them. You get a quicker, a glance of one of them when they're not just spinning around in that cyclone. And it looks like this one, too.
Okay.
But none of these things, which kind of look like Dementors with
a little bit
more faces, none of them look like these witches.
Yes. Okay, so that was my other question. Because Lilith doesn't, keep the look herself. and these don't look like the other two. Yeah. And I was very confused about all this.
I don't have an answer. I don't. It's weird. It's like they didn't have the budget or the technology to make a swarm of these witches, so they made a swarm of Dementors instead. I don't know.
Interesting. All right, so Bedlam. She, like, her opinion of Shakespeare goes down a bit because he put his friend in here, and she's just like, you have to be able to tell that this place is bad for people. Why would you stick him in here? And he says, I've been mad. I've lost my mind. Fear of this place set me right again. Serves its purpose. That's nothing. What are you talking about?
If only we all could just get over our depression and not let it fester and get worse with fear of being hospitalized. If only that was the cure.
She talks about how, like, these people are taken out and, like, whipped for the fun of the audience. Like, yeah, definitely. People would definitely just snap out of having, like, acute mental illness.
Yeah.
Because they know that they're going to be whipped for it. That's certainly how it works. Why would there be anybody here then? Shakespeare.
Right.
Why, if it serves its purpose to snap people out of it, why is there any inmate that stays for any particular length of time?
And he never went there, so it's not like the place itself snapped him out of it. It was the fear of going there.
Yeah.
Of getting so bad that somebody would put him there.
I hated this. Made me very irritated. And this leads to him talking about the futility of existence, and he says to be or not to be, and then says, that's actually rather good. And the doctor says you should write that down, and he says, maybe not. A bit pretentious? And the doctor just sort of gives a little bit of like a half nod, like, well. And I liked that moment at least.
Yeah.
Because it is a little bit pretentious. To be or not to be?
That is the question.
Have you seen that performance by Moriarty?
No.
Look it up. That man is very good.
Is it part of Sherlock, or is it just
it's
actor?
Him on stage performing in the play. And somebody filmed that soliloquy. And he is, like, riveting.
You know...
really, really good.
Didn't Tom Hiddleston also do Hamlet?
I wouldn't be surprised. That seems like sort of a thing that you do.
Well,
like being in high school and doing Grease.
Tom Hiddleston is a classically trained actor, so he actually, I believe, studied, like, Shakespeare as a... like the way that Kenneth Branagh studied Shakespeare. Like, he's a Shakespearean actor. Mm-hmm. And he does a lot of Shakespeare plays still. And I feel like he was in a production of Hamlet that was filmed. And I may have seen him doing that soliloquy. What's the name of the actor who plays Moriarty?
I can never remember.
Is that Mark Gatiss?
Is it?
The one who's in Game of Thrones?
No, that's that's the guy who plays
that's his
brother. Yeah.
Okay, what's the guy who plays Moriarty? I may have seen it.
Moriarty Sherlock. Andrew Scott.
Oh, maybe not. You should look up some of Hiddleston's stuff because he's really good doing Shakespeare.
I don't need to see any more of Hiddleston being good at things, okay? You know what? I'm basically mad at that guy now. He has, like, the crush that I developed on Tom Hiddleston almost eclipsed the crush that I have developed on any other actor. It just became, like, tiresome, even to me. So,
he's very talented.
I will do no such thing.
And very handsome, so it makes sense.
He's stupid handsome.
Yeah.
He's super charming.
Yep.
He is incredibly talented.
Yep.
He has a look about him of somebody who is up to no good, which is like one of my favorite things.
He's a perfect Loki.
Oh, completely. Like, yeah, the fact that he auditioned to be Thor is laughable.
Yeah.
And yeah, just, I had to move on. I had to make a choice that I was going to stop obsessing over Tom Hiddleston because it was just not a good, healthy place to be.
How does one make that choice? Because I've never been able to do it. You can tell me off air.
You got to decide. You've got to look at yourself the way that other people see you for the pathetic creature that you are and just realize that it's time to stop it.
Oh, the way that my boyfriend looks at me every time I talk about Chris Evans?
This is what, yes, Although I'm realizing that I'm starting to turn into that again, regarding Aidan Turner.
Oh my God, he's the hottest person to ever live.
I swear to God, Aidan Turner has some sort of superpower because there are other men objectively on this earth who are better looking objectively, but whatever it is that he has going on, it goes beyond looks into a whole other stratosphere that feels supernatural in some way.
I really don't talk about him much. I talk about Evans all the time, but really, I think that Aidan Turner is hands down the best looking man I've ever seen in my life.
Have you watched And Then There Were None? The
No.
miniseries that he was in? Okay, Jamie, listen. I thought him in Being Human, licking blood off his fingers was the hottest that he has ever been. And I watched And Then There Were None this past weekend while I was doing a bunch of editing. And he is in a tuxedo. He is in a torn up bloody shirt. He is in a bath towel. And I can't decide what he looks better in. Every moment of him in that show, it's very female gazy. I feel like whoever directed this was we're going to cash in on this guy.
Well, that's like what they did with Poldark when they had him just using a scythe and cutting through some wheat or something with no shirt on. And it was so hey ladies, here you go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the whole, because it's 3 episodes and each episode's an hour and change, I think.
Is it on Amazon?
Yes, that's where I found it. It was on, you have to have Acorn or whatever.
The fuck is that? I'll figure it out.
It's the subscription to British TV, which is completely worth it in my opinion. And yeah, he is so stunning. It was distracting to me. I had to pause a couple times just to really let it sink in and then go back and rewind it and then watch it again. There's a moment of a flashback where he's walking out of the woods, smoking a cigarette, covered in blood. And it's probably the sexiest he's ever been. It's really concerning to me how much the sexiness of various men, if we made a chart, the correlation between the amount of blood currently on them and how sexy I think they are is extremely high. It never fails. Same thing with Timothy Olyphant in Deadwood. Every scene that he's been beaten and is suffering from broken nose, split lip, whatever, I find him sexier than any other time. But yeah.
Yeah, you might want to look into why
I
that
like
is.
Brutality, okay?
You
it's
do.
fine. I've come to terms with it.
We don't get any of that on this show. This is the tamest show when it comes to brutality.
Does the Doctor never get bloodied?
Not that I can think of offhand.
Oh, that's a shame, because I bet he would pull that look off pretty well.
Well, that's why you watch David Tennant in Fright Night.
Oh my God, but he's such an idiot in Fright Night that he can't be hot. Besides, he's in Fright Night next to a bloody Colin Farrell, and I'm sorry, David Tennant, but you're not going to be able to compete with that.
No, he can't. As much as I love him, Colin Farrell's still higher on my list.
Yeah, Fright Night. There goes some sexy bloodiness. Sexybloodiness.com. That's going to be my new site in which I document the hotness of men relative
That can
to
be
blood.
our side hustle podcast.
I'm here for it.
Where we
guys,
review.
If you're listening to this and you're like, oh, she should definitely watch such and such because this guy is always covered in blood because he's always beating people. Yes, please tell me about it. As long as he's not like a sadistic killer who's torturing people.
Yeah, we don't want Ramsay Snow.
Yeah, that's not hot. That's just upsetting.
Yeah.
But, there's that line, especially Seth Bullock in Deadwood, where he's like, Mr. Justice. Mm-hmm. That's very hot also. So.
Yep. Okay,
Hashtag
let's
Mr.
get back
Justice.
to some crazy witches named Doomfinger.
Oh, I'm sorry, guys. I'm so off topic. Okay, so they go to Bedlam, and this guy tells them basically that he got forced to build the Globe Theater according to the design of these witches. And then they snapped his wits. And this man's poor teeth look like Indian corn. They
look like, what's it called? Huitlacoche? It's like fermented corn.
Are you going to make me look up another thing this episode, Jaime?
No, somebody can correct me in the comments. I can't think of exactly how it's pronounced, but it's fermented corn, and it's like black in color and like kind of looks slimy.
Ugh.
That's what his teeth look like to me.
I have to say that, like, it's a testament to human ingenuity, bravery, and also just recklessness. How much fermented food we eat as a species. Because, like, when you really stop and think about it, fermentation is just really nasty.
I don't want to think about it because it always intrigues me. Yeah, that looks gross. Fermented corn. Let me try it, though.
I'm curious about some, I like wine. I like cheese.
There you go.
So this bitch shows up, and
Doomfinger.
she just touches him and kills him because that's her thing. That's why she's called Doomfinger.
Yep.
Best reveal ever. Because I really did not think that her name was going to matter at all. But it turns out that's the whole thing.
Can you please, on the final Game of Thrones... Oh, he's not even going to be in it. Never mind. The fucking Night King, when he touches things and turns them into other White Walkers. He's a Doomfinger. Please go back to those old episodes and edit yourself as calling him Doomfinger.
Did Blood Tide have a thing?
Not that we see.
Oh, I want to know. Blood Tide, come on, come through.
Why
girl.
wasn't she the one who drowned the person? She could have drowned him with blood.
That's what I was kind of thinking, like maybe I missed it and that she was the one that sort of, but I didn't think I missed it, and yeah.
Nope, that was Lilith.
Doomfinger. Yeah, so she's standing there. I love the part, like, the doctor, like, yells at her, and she sort of puts her hands up and is just like, ooh, and I just really enjoyed her, like, sarcasm in that moment. Whoever did their makeup is also, like, they did a pretty decent job. I enjoyed this. The look that she gets. And the look that the other woman gets when she has the thing in her hands and she says, patient sisters. And she says patient sisters in the way that you would to, like, a child. There's something about their makeup that the way that they say these things comes through. There's a flexibility to their makeup, and I mean that literally. Mm-hmm. That I think you can get more personality out of them than you often can when people are wearing something that's this heavy, Because
I watched a lot of Face Off on Sci-Fi, which was a makeup artist competition show. Mm-hmm. There's different, if they make a mold using different types of things, I think it's the silicone molds move more on the face
okay.
than the foam molds. So they may have used a silicone one for this. So they could be more expressive.
It definitely, if that's the case, like, I approve wholeheartedly. Because there's something so much funnier about these witch faces that are kind of meant to look really sinister, but then having such complex emotions cross. Yeah. I like that a lot.
So the doctor figures out who they are, or what they are.
Right. He calls her a carrionite.
Yes.
And that causes her, for some reason, to disappear back to the rooms that they were in.
Yeah.
I don't understand the principle of this. What this is supposed to do, because, like, when the witch does it later to Martha, she just falls asleep, and the witch is like, oh, that didn't affect her the way that it should have.
Because she's a person out of time.
But this woman is not affected particularly, except for being, like, pushed out of where they're standing. It's not like she suffers any permanent effects from this, right?
Not that we see.
So, just sort of a weird, like, I don't know, I name you and that, like, somehow teleports you to a different building. That's a weird, like, that doesn't feel like anything.
I guess it would be too easy if just naming them would teleport them back to where they belong.
Yeah, I guess. Just a weird thing to do at all. Just have him pull out a sonic screwdriver.
And it only works once.
Right, like the whole thing with the naming and him trying to be like, well, naming, that's its own kind of magic. And I'm like, yeah, but you guys aren't doing anything with this, really. It just feels like they're trying to act like that's a real thing, but it doesn't, there's no rules that I can tell to it. So it doesn't, do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Anyway, I found it weird. But I do like the fact that they are basically aliens. Their witchcraft is just some sort of other ability that he compares to science. Which again, Dresden Files. Just saying. So, they ask Will to remember what the ending of the play is. And he talks about how, it's just, they get the girls, they dance around. It's not exactly revolutionary stuff. And then he realizes that he doesn't remember writing the last page. And the doctor zeroes in on that and is like, fuck, okay, so that's what it is they're doing. They're using the globe as some sort of like energy converter, and what you wrote initiates whatever it is they're doing.
It's like they wrote the combination to a lock or to a safe. Mm-hmm. I don't have more than
what?
I don't have more than that. Just like they wrote this combination to unlock something, and they need to be inside of this shaped thing to make it happen.
Why do they have to have it performed at this time? Do you remember?
I don't think that's exactly explained, is it?
I don't think so either, because one of the witches, when she says they're putting it off, and she's like, no, the play must be performed tomorrow.
Well, and you want me to go on one of my, it probably means this kind of thing?
I can't decide if that's what I want or not. I think I don't.
Okay. Then they don't say.
Jaime, then why say it at all, though?
So that you understand why there's a rush.
But I don't understand why there's a rush.
It has to be tomorrow because they say so.
I don't understand why there's a rush. That's my whole point. Is that I don't get why.
It has to be. These words said, this number sequence said, in this 14-sided theater, in this spot, to line up with something in the universe. To make it happen. That's why.
Well, as long as it's clear.
Otherwise, they miss their window. And they'll never get out.
I mean,
it's
okay,
like,
you know
like
what, sure.
Space shuttles have to come back at a certain time, in a certain place, at a certain velocity, or they could burn up. I don't know.
I'm sorry, guys. I just really... I get off on it now. When Jaime can't explain something and I've beaten her will down so that she just babbles.
That's really all I'm doing. Like the writers of many shows, I'm just making shit up.
Oh, God. It's fine, though. It's fine.
I should be a sci-fi writer because I can just make stuff up on the spot and be like, it doesn't matter if it makes sense or not. Just shoot it.
Yep. Listen, we're not going to talk about this, but I want you to know that I agree with you fully. And you should be a sci-fi writer.
Well, I should write for Doctor Who.
So, Will comes out on stage in the middle of this play, and is like, we must stop the performance! And one of the witches is like, I'm gonna knock this motherfucker out. And she does. And some dude gets up and says, you must forgive our irksome Will. He's been on the beer and feeling ill. Do you know how much I love the fact that after he says that,
he does a little dance?
No, one of the witches gets this like very pleased look and applauds him.
I didn't even notice that.
Like, she was just like, oh, well done. Okay, yes, good. I love that. And then yes, indeed, the dance backward is, I'm pretty sure I've seen Owen do that after telling a bad joke, actually. That looks like something that he'd do. I'm pretty sure that in a cocktail hour, there's some recording of him on Crowdcast behaving in this manner.
It wouldn't surprise me.
Such a Cooper. I love it. So, they have to go to All Hallows Street. And Martha is a little bit complacent here. Because she's like, well, we know that the world didn't end in 1599. I mean, I'm standing right here. And he's like, yeah, but have you seen Back to the Future? And she's like, yes. And then realizes that he's saying that she's going to fade away. Which is in direct opposition to the theory in Endgame. In which that could not possibly happen. And I find time travel rules to be very confusing. Jamie and I covered The Time Traveler's Wife. And that was a little bit easier for me to grasp. The rules felt clearer there.
Mm-hmm. Well, like with time travel, there's every individual time travel thing has its own rules.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess in Doctor Who, they subscribe to the kind of rules where if you change something and it affects so much like this would, then it will wipe everything else out. It will change everything in its path.
She specifically asks the Doctor, is it safe for us to go out and walk around because we could change things? And he's like, of course it's safe. What do you mean? Are you planning on stepping on a butterfly or killing your grandfather? And she's like, no. And he's like, well, then it's fine. But then this happens, and all of a sudden he's like, well, you could just stop existing. So what do you think about that? And I'm like, dude, you're acting like she's being dense. She checked with you if this was a possibility right away. And you acted like it was an absurd concern.
Well, that was before they were running into witches, and he just thought we were going to see some Shakespeare. What could possibly happen if we're just going to see a play?
I guess.
But you're not wrong. He was wrong. He should have said, well, you got to be careful. Don't go giving away the lines of all these plays to Shakespeare or anything.
Yeah, what's all that about? Are we supposed to take from this that this guy that everybody is saying is such a genius maybe isn't? And he got half of his material from the Doctor, in fact?
Yes. Since we know, supposedly, he also stole from other people.
That's true. Thieving bastard. So, here comes fucking Martha. I name thee Carrionite, which the Doctor lets her fucking proceed with like a dumbass. The poor thing humiliates herself, and then gets knocked out. I gaze upon this bag of bones, and now I name thee Martha Jones, and she just passes out. Rude.
Mm-hmm.
Her name has less impact. She's somehow out of her time. Well, was she trying to kill her? Could that happen?
Could.
Since she said bag of bones, was that supposed to turn Martha into a bag of bones?
I think he was supposed to kill her.
That's messed up. I really want to see her actually get turned into a bag of bones real quick. Just because I want to know what that looks like. I want Martha to come back and be fine afterwards. Don't get me wrong.
Someone please draw a bag of bones, stitch on the bag Martha Jones, and we'll make a t-shirt out of it.
I don't want the bag of bones, Jaime. I want to see her turn into a bag of bones.
Why?
You know what? How I want to see it? This is what I want. Okay. I want her skin to shrivel up and for it to be that like Indiana Jones thing where, you know, you just like decay really quickly, like on fast forward. And then I want her skin to do that, but all of her clothes to remain. And then her clothes to like unravel and then re-ravel into a bag around her skeleton. So that she's wearing a really fancy bag. It's a bag of bones, but not a nasty burlap bag. It's a beautifully...
denim and leather bag.
Yeah, maybe denim and leather, bit of that vine pattern that she has on that tank top underneath, you know? Maybe that could be the lining. Ooh, it's a nice lined bag with like a velvet interior. Very fancy.
Okay.
I broke her. I broke Jaime, everybody.
I just don't know why you would want this to happen to poor Martha, but okay.
I want her to come back after. I got better. So then this witch tries to use the doctor's name, but he just has the name doctor. And then she says, oh, but look, there's still one word with a power that aches. But your heart grows cold. The north wind blows and carries down the distant rose. And he gets incensed.
Yep.
He comes and stands, and he is like a lot taller than her. I'm pretty sure she's like on a downward step. But nevertheless, he's like 2 feet taller minimum. It looks like his stomach is like at her like eye level.
She's not out the window yet?
No, not yet. A moment later, she is when she gets his hair from him. Because she tries to pretend like she's going to seduce him. And he's like, you fool, this isn't going to work on me. But then it turns out that she has another thing. And it is sort of weird that he's like, oh, you think you can seduce me? This isn't going to work. And I'm like, you realize that she's literally close enough to stab you.
Yeah.
Like, she doesn't need to do anything like, you know, I guess he's not worried about her killing him. And it is sort of weird that she's close enough to stab him and she uses that, like, time to get a bit of hair rather than just actually killing him. But I guess she's not Doomfinger. Yeah. She doesn't have a weapon right at hand.
Her magic seems to be contained to making these little dolls and using them.
She's got, like, manicure scissors. That's right. Because I was thinking that she used a knife to cut it, and I was like, she could have stabbed him with that. But stabbing somebody with manicure scissors, that's not really going to do anything.
It would hurt, but that's about it.
Yeah, it would just be, like, inconvenient. Like,
yeah.
Oh, God. Is that bleeding? No, it's fine, but ouch, though. But yeah, you're right. I guess it is the doll thing that's, like, her specialty.
And he's, like, really dismissive of it. Like, that's basically a DNA replication module. Like, but yes, a voodoo doll.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So, you think that's not going to have any kind of effect? That she's using your hair to make a voodoo doll? And she's some kind of witch creature? Doctors, come on. You're supposed to be smart. And he is, because she stabs him in the heart, and he's got 2 hearts. But
yes, he goes down with the stab. And after being smart about, you call that magic. I say, I'm like, what do you say? What'd you say again, Doc? And she flies away. It's pretty dope, actually. This witch is awesome. I actually really like her. I thought that she managed to be just the right amount of, like, jocular while also being threatening.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes they go too far with trying to make villains, like, fun. And it feels sort of forced, I guess.
Yeah.
But I think that there's maybe something to the fact that the language that they're using in this is so stylized that it feels a lot more alien to use a word that means more than one thing here, but still.
It's campy, but not in the same way that other episodes are campy.
Yeah. Yeah, so her just like flinging herself out the window and flying away is pretty awesome. If I could do that, oh my God, the DMV would be so much easier.
You wouldn't need it.
Just be like, oh, nope, this is the form that I need. Just fly right over the table. Go to my own file. Because they have my files. Right? Is that a thing?
Of course.
So, back at the theater, she shows up to sit in the booth with her ugly stepsisters. And they're finishing up the play. And the dude comes out and says his line. Do you know what I thought was going to happen here, Jamie?
What?
I thought that this guy was going to have memorized his line wrong.
Oh, that would have been good. And
that he, they were dependent on him to come out and say this thing, and he doesn't say it right.
Yeah, that would have been good.
Because what do? Then they just stand up and say it? Well, why couldn't they just have done that then?
Right?
Does them saying it not work? Sort of a weird thing.
Yeah.
But
maybe it doesn't work, otherwise they would have just done it themselves.
That's what I'm telling myself, because that's what we do with this show, and that's fine. But I just really, I genuinely did think for a moment that was what was going to happen. Because there's enough of a hesitation when he starts to deliver the line that now I'm like, okay, that's just the way that he chose to deliver it. But for a second, I thought that he had forgotten. But no, he says it correctly, and then this fucking thing opens, and there's that priest who's talking about the end times out in the street, who is very excited. I told thee so. I told thee. He is so excited.
It's the opposite of those cult people on Parks and Recreation.
Oh my God, is that the greatest? I love that.
Played by Chris Pine's dad. The leader.
Is that?
Yeah.
Oh my God, weird.
Yeah.
It just makes me think of my dad who did all of the prepping for Y2K.
Oh no.
He did. He bought all kinds of water and canned goods and whatnot and had them in his basement. Turns out, guys, just spoiler alert, Y2K was nothing.
It was nothing.
It was nothing. But he believed.
Well, that's better than believing in the 2012 thing.
I hit my head. Don't rub it. You'll go bald. Oh, doctor.
Which is a reference to all those portraits of Shakespeare.
Yeah. Shakespeare was a homely dude. Meanwhile, these witches are standing, holding this crystal ball while the wind buffets them. And it's a really awesome scene, and I loved it. It's really, really satisfying. This is some old school witch shit, and I'm here for it. Yeah, so this portal begins to open up, and these others come through looking like bats flying around. Or like tea leaves when your tea bag breaks and you stir the tea in the cup and then you see them spinning around and you're like, shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's nothing worse than that, man. That gets me so mad. But yeah, so they're flying around looking totally different than these other broads. Maybe it's supposed to be that they look different unless they have been kind of gotten accustomed to Earth.
Maybe.
But the whole thing, they want to open this portal to end humanity and start a whole new civilization, basically, right?
Sure.
Is that what?
I don't remember what they said their plan
She says
was.
that she wants to bring back the old ways of blood and magic. I think. Blood, sugar, sex, magic. And this is the part that I rolled my eyes at the hardest. I really did enjoy this episode. But when what it comes down to is Will Shakespeare needs to say a thing to close the portal,
He's a brilliant wordsmith.
I just know. And what he comes up with isn't even that good.
No.
Close up this din of hateful, dire decay, decomposition of your witch's plot. You thieve my brains, consider me your toy. My doting doctor tells me I am not. What? What? And one of them says, oh no, words of power. And I'm like, no. That just sounds like somebody got a little bit too into either the rhyming dictionary or they were going through a phase where everything had to be like, what is it called when it all starts with the same letter? Hateful din of daunting, dire decay. But anyway, I just don't like this being the big, like, solution to this. I do not care for this.
And Harry Potter saves the day anyway.
That's true. That was okay, though. I enjoyed that because, in a way, it sort of undermined the entire thing. Mm-hmm. It was just like, oh yeah, the words are really, really important. And then it comes down to a made-up word that isn't anything. Or is it supposed to be that it means so much?
I guess it just means that words, literature, it's important in general. Doesn't matter that the word Expelliarmus doesn't mean anything to Shakespeare. But yeah, the written word or words have power all on their own.
Alliteration.
I was trying so hard to think of it, and I was like, God, none of the right things are coming to my head.
Yeah. Yeah, so he got a little bit too into alliteration there. But then Expelliarmus is the thing, which kind of made up for it a little bit. I would have loved it if that was just what we started with. And then they wind up closing the portal, but these witches get sucked into the actual crystal ball. And I'm watching this happen like right now, because when they say Expelliarmus, she's still holding the thing, and then she says, the deepest darkness, they are consumed. So I'm realizing the portal doesn't just close. It's like all of these creatures are being killed. Is that true?
Sure.
Did he just, like, kill a whole race of alien? Did we just see a friggin', like, a genocide? That's some serious shit. Yikes. Actually.
They just go into the void where all of the Daleks were sucked into.
Is that what it is?
I don't know.
Oh my god, them versus the Daleks, can you imagine?
The Daleks have, like, a handful of words. It would be no contest.
Exterminate, words of power. Alright, so they get sucked into this crystal ball, and every time I see them pounding on the inside of it and yelling, it reminded me of when the Grand Vizier gets turned into a genie and gets sucked into his brand new itty-bitty living space. Aladdin? Anything?
I was like, what is that from? It's been a long time since I saw Aladdin, I'm sorry.
It's super good. Don't see the live action one, guys.
I do not want to.
I saw the preview when we went to see Endgame.
Mm-hmm. We did too.
Weird. Like...
Yeah. Jason and I looked at each other and we were like, no.
Yeah.
And then we saw the trailer for The Lion King, and I want to say no, but I love The Lion King and it looks amazing. So I'll go see that.
Yeah, I didn't really like The Lion King as a kid.
It's my favorite Disney movie.
I think it came out like late enough that I was sort of not super into Disney anymore. But it was so sad. Anytime that the stories start off with like a parent dying, I just can't deal with it.
Yeah, it is really sad.
So, yeah, that one just kind of went off my list for me. And Aladdin and Little Mermaid were my two favorites.
I really enjoyed Aladdin. I just haven't rewatched it much. I've watched The Little Mermaid a dozen times. I love The Little Mermaid.
Yeah, the Little Mermaid feels like it's a lot less loaded with unfortunate racial stereotypes than Aladdin is. I still really enjoy Aladdin, but there are definitely moments where I was just like, oh, guys, why'd you have to write those lyrics?
Yeah.
But I guess they've changed some of them so that they don't, like, when they first came out, some of the lyrics were a lot more brutal, and they talked about, like, you know, how barbaric this land is and everything. And they went back and changed them out. So they seem to wise up, at least.
Yeah.
So...
Oh, and when the, going back to the show, when all of the Carianites are sucked to wherever they are through the portal, all of the pages from the play go with them.
Right. So this is the lost play, and he thinks about rewriting it, but the doctor is like, yeah, you know what? I think you should just leave that alone. Which doesn't make a lot of sense to me, because it was really just the coordinates that were the problem, so I feel like you take that out and it's fine. But they need to have a reason for this play to not exist now, so. And he gives him this friggin' collar.
Now he comes out with the skull, which he's holding the way that Hamlet holds a skull. But he says it reminds him of the Sycorax. And Shakespeare's like, oh, I like that word.
Yeah, what's that?
Well, I looked it up because I remembered reading something when we talked about the Sycorax in the Christmas invasion episode. And it is the name of the mother of Caliban in Shakespeare's play The Tempest.
Oh. Okay. Interesting. Sycorax. That's his mother's name?
The name of a character, yes.
Wow. Yeah, that doesn't feel like anybody's name. Okay. So then he's like, let me write a poem for you. And he starts to do the, shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more fair and more temperate. And then they get interrupted. And the queen is here. And everybody's super excited because we all want to be performing for the queen. This is a really big deal. I can't believe it. She finally came. And she walks in, majestic as fuck, and sees the doctor and calls him her sworn enemy and says, off with his head, and they have to run the fuck out of there. They have to do a bunk.
And he doesn't understand because he's never met her.
Nope. Yeah, and he's like, oh, I can't wait to find out what that's about. That's time travel for you. And he opens the door to the TARDIS and runs in there just in time for an arrow to go plunging into the door. Yep. And that's the end of the episode. Yep. So I'm very excited to find out what's going on with the Queen of England. I am also... Who was the actress that was playing her? Because she was fearsome looking.
I'll have to look that up.
That bitch looked scary as fuck. I mean, that outfit is also going to help with that, though, because she looks like some sort of creature. Just, like, with, like, big wings. Like, it's what I imagine when birds are trying to intimidate one another. Oh, and they spread their wings out and sort of do a dance. Or a mating dance, even. But she's definitely not a mating dance. She is an intimidation dance. Like, when swans see you and they are trying to scare you away from their area and they flutter their wings.
Or like when cats puff up and you see their tails are super fat.
Yeah. Fat tails.
Her name is Angela Pleasance.
Okay. Don't know that one.
Yeah, I don't know her.
Well, we'll see, I guess.
She's got 59 different credits. She's been in like Happy Valley, Whitechapel, Casualty, Poirot.
Poirot! I always can depend on Poirot.
Agatha Christie's Marple.
Maybe that's where I know her from. Is she Miss Marple?
No. She's only on... Wait, I'm looking at the wrong one. Hold on. No, she is only in one episode.
Oh, okay, never mind.
No, it doesn't seem like she's necessarily one of those, hey, it's that guy kind of actors, because she does like one episode of something here and there.
All right, well, I'm looking forward to that. I hope that that wasn't some big tease and that we don't wind up finding out what that is, because I want to know. Because really, for her to just straight up go off with his head.
Yeah, he must have done something.
He must have been pretty serious.
Well, the Carrionites the Doctor has encountered before, in two different, not on television though. The fourth Doctor encountered them in a book, and the sixth Doctor in an audio play.
Oh my God.
What?
Okay, yeah. No, I'm sorry. I misunderstood what you were saying, like that he encountered them in a book. I thought that you were saying he read about them.
Oh, no.
But you were saying that it wasn't on TV, it was in a book. And
like the character. So Carrionites might be something that, like, longtime Doctor Who fans have heard of before because of a couple other forms of media that mention them.
Gotcha. Huh, that's interesting. I didn't know about radio plays for Doctor Who.
Yeah, there's quite a lot of them, I guess. And I think it's because the show would like be off the air for a while. And so because Doctor Who was always really popular, they would have these radio plays.
Gotcha.
There's another thing about how Shakespeare has previously appeared as a young boy in one of the radio plays and on a TV episode when he was older.
Huh. Okay. That's kind of fun. Well, I would, can you imagine if, like, because of the delay between seasons 7 and 8 of Game of Thrones, they fucking had a radio play instead because there was delays?
Might have helped.
There'd have been some character development at least, maybe. Because they couldn't rely on spectacle.
No. We do have a review.
Yay!
Get to really quick. It's pretty short. It's interesting take on a great show. 5 stars by Rad1183 from the U.S. They say, I enjoy listening to the points of view of both these young ladies. Other than the not need swearing, they do a great job. Great way to take a walk through the fun show. Sorry. That's not going anywhere, so...
Yeah, whenever anybody has a problem with my swearing, I'm just like, well, then, I'm sorry, we're not friends.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, this is just who I am.
It's definitely part of my everyday vocabulary. So, sorry. Sorry, not sorry. Anywhere, but I'm
glad
you enjoy
that you like
the show. Please keep listening. Thank you for the review.
Yeah, I whenever, and the phrasing also, like, not needed swearing, I always wonder if they simply mean you don't need to swear, period, or if there are situations in which swearing is needed, and this isn't one of them.
I feel like most situations could always use a little bit of swearing.
I feel
it's good
like
emphasis.
that myself.
Yeah.
But, you know. Anyway. All right. Well, thank you guys all very much for listening. I hope that you've been enjoying this. I'm really liking season 3 so far. This has been good. And apparently folks were glad that I liked Martha.
Yeah.
Because we got a couple of comments of people who were just like, I was so excited that you said that you liked her. Yes, I do, and I still do.
Good.
And I want her to hook up with the Doctor just because I kind of want the Doctor to hook up with somebody, just because I'm curious if he does that. But also, she does deserve better. Better than Will Shakespeare, who tries to make out with her and she tells him that he has bad breath, which is real embarrassing. Yikes. So, yeah, this has been fun. So thank you, Jaime, for being here and talking with me about everything but Doctor Who for quite a while. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
And we will see you next week with a new episode. Toodaloo, motherfuckers.
Bye.
Woo!
Network podcast.